Today's sermon is entitled Kitchen Table Gospel. It's that kind of wisdom and knowledge that comes from mothers and women in our lives sharing, sometimes indirectly, sometimes through stories and in conversations, but deep truths that impact our lives and make a difference as we go about the journey. The annual focus on motherhood is a celebration for many. Many of you who enjoy being mothers and grandmothers. It's not the case for everybody. It's a difficult reminder for some, those who've lost a child through miscarriage or even death, those who've wanted to have children and couldn't, and those perhaps whose mother was more of a burden than a blessing. Certainly motherhood is no guarantee of greatness or of goodness. One author wrote about her experience of having gone through the adoption process and how challenging it was. And she said, ironically, we practically have to be sainted to get through the adoption process. But any fool can spawn and have a baby. Isn't that true? Sometimes it's too true. Some of the things we've picked up on through motherhood, we've seen in our television mothers we've known on TV. A few quotes here. Well, the big deal is that it's part of my job to make sure you won't grow up stupid. It's bad for the world. That's from Tammy Taylor on Friday Night Lights. Another one, I don't dislike him, I just don't like him, which is quite different. This is from Lady Grantham on Downton Abbey. And then from Claire on Modern Family, you have no idea how hard it is to be a parent, to figure out what's going on with your kid when all you get is a grunt or a fine or a flick of the hair. It's my job to protect you and make sure you're making good choices. And if I step over the line every now and again when I'm doing it, tough. Knowing you're safe is the only thing that lets me sleep at night. And then Cam replied, I thought it was the wine. And finally, from that great mother, Roseanne, the only thing I've ever wanted for my kids is that they're happy and that they're out of the house. And I tell you what, happy ain't even that important. Well, we enjoy laughing a little bit, but sometimes it's true, those challenges that we have, but there are people in our lives, women in our lives, who have had great influence, played a powerful role. Hopefully each of us has had influential people in their lives, influential women, whether it was a mother, an aunt, a friend of the family. One of the persons who was really important in my life was my maternal grandmother. Growing up, I had a mamaw and a mawmaw and a great-grandmother named Nanny. I'm not sure how the list got assigned for those names, but my mawmaw was my maternal grandmother, and I was her favorite. Can you imagine anything else? I have 7 grandkids. She pampered me, which I enjoyed. I would travel, sometimes we even traveled on a bus by ourselves to Oklahoma as small kids. I can't imagine anybody doing that today, but we traveled to McAllister, Oklahoma, but when I arrived at the house, she had a refrigerator full of ground beef because she was willing to cook me hamburgers 3 meals a day. And at that time, my grandfather was working nights at a gas station downtown. He would go to work at midnight and get off at 7 or 8 in the morning. So we stayed up late watching old movies till 12 or 1 in the morning, eating Coke floats and just having a great time. But one thing about Mama is her house was the house where everybody belonged. Everybody was welcome. When one of the cousins got in trouble or had difficulty at home, they went to stay with Mama. That's the kind of influence she had, both in the kind of acceptance but also in her Christian faith. It was in the bedroom of her house that I prayed to ask Jesus to come into my life after I'd been to a service with her at her church that evening. To the women in the room, I hope that today's message is both challenging and meaningful. We're going to move right away to a very serious and devastating moment for one mother. We see Mary at the foot of the cross in John chapter 19. She's there with Mary Magdalene and a sister. And we find Jesus on the cross looking down. And surely she was looking up and thinking of all the things that had happened in his life, playing as a small child, interacting with family members, and then eventually even into his ministry years. Well, her journey was an eventful one. Her journey was a challenging one. And all of us have challenging journeys. Every woman has their own unique story. Today we're going to look at some qualities that empower women to make a difference, to be a positive difference in people's lives. First, we're going to look at women who know things, women who know truth. What is true? Well, I looked up the definition, and it says, in accordance with fact or reality. Well, we know, and particularly in the last few years, people have argued what the truth is, but at the end of the day, there are facts and things that are true. And mothers tend to know those things. Women tend to have a better instinct for that. I ran across a saying the other day that said, when your mother asks you a question, it's best to tell the truth because chances are she already knows the answer. We've all been there as children, perhaps, and as parents. Truth was important in the New Testament when Paul wrote about the armor of God. In Ephesians chapter 6, he talked about putting on that armor, but the belt of truth that kind of held everything together, even the belt that was the place to hang other weapons and other things. Women have committed themselves to truth in new ways in recent years. The Me Too movement took place and took root because women were finally freed to tell the truth about certain things, to talk about the truth of the language in the workplace. Women who know the truth protect the soul of people around them. There's that power of truth that women can create with an atmosphere of truth. They protect the soul by preventing deception, that deceit that happens when someone we love or someone we're in a relationship with tries to convince us of something that really isn't true. Women help protect the soul by penetrating that, by cutting through manipulation, that way that some people have of cleverly and unfairly manipulating and changing circumstances or massaging the truth and trying to influence you in a relationship. Lainey and I were at a dinner party a number of years ago, and someone there at the dinner party said this, said, everyone has a hidden motive, a hidden agenda. Everyone is trying to manipulate others. Well, on our ride home, we thought out loud to each other, perhaps that comment said more about her than it did others. You see, that deceit and that manipulation can be devastating. Mother Teresa said this, one of the greatest diseases is to be nobody to anybody. Isn't that what deceit and manipulation do? They emphasize that we are nobody to that person. Women who know compassion nurture the soul. That compassion that comes alongside someone to acknowledge what's gone on, to acknowledge the heartache. Not bursting in like a man might do, let's fix this, let's solve this, but just the presence of that person, that woman, acknowledging what's happened and that brokenness, that struggle. Women are typically better at this than us men. Women nurture the soul by acting to support that person. Maybe it's a cup of coffee, a dinner, a hug, or just spending time. Again, not solutions, not trying to solve it and fix it, but by acting to support the person, not solve the problem or remove the heartache. Author Brené Brown says, compassion is not a virtue, it's a commitment. It's not something we have or don't have. It's something we choose to practice. Women who know grace comfort the soul. Slightly different than just the nurture. That grace comes and offers understanding of the failure and understanding of the brokenness that you're experiencing. That woman who's there and truly has been in your shoes, has felt that kind of heartache, offering that understanding or even demonstrating acceptance. So often our brokenness and our heartache makes us feel like that we're not going to be comforted. There's no one out there who truly understands. But there are women who are powerful in this way that help comfort the soul in demonstrating that acceptance of that person, that unconditional love that makes you feel valued and real. One of my favorite children's books is The Velveteen Rabbit. At one point in that book, the rabbit asks the skin horse about becoming real. You become, the skin horse says. It takes a long time. That's why it doesn't happen often to people who break easily or who have sharp edges, or you have to be carefully kept. Generally, by the time you're real, most of your hair has been loved off, your eyes drop out, and you get loose in the joints and very shabby. But these things don't matter at all, because once you're real, you can't be ugly, except to people who don't understand. That's what grace looks like. The understanding so that the person can be real. Women who are certain things, women who are valued, are considered to be, it is a consideration that we need to pay attention to, that to value women in order for them to have the impact and to be important, for them to feel beneficial and cherished. Women who are valued help create connection, that connectivity within the family. If they're important to the family, if they're important to the children, if you're in the workplace and you feel valued as a contributor, you're able to create a connection among people that's a little bit unique to women. An author named Michelle Nugent wrote about her experience between teaching as a professional teacher, being a mother, and at her age also caring for elderly parents. She calls those things works of the heart. I think that is sort of unique to women, those works of the heart. I wouldn't call some of the things we men do works of the heart. Women who are valued create a connection. Women who are respected solve problems. One of our favorite movies in recent years was Hidden Figures, about the women who had impact on the early days of the NASA space program. Not just women, but women of color. And the contributions that were made by them to those programs because they found respect. Someone in the organization respected their knowledge and their skill sets. Women who are respected can solve problems, and that happens in the home, it happens at work, it happens in churches, and it happens in social circles. Those knowledge, that skills, that perspective. I ran across a list recently of women who were inventors. Did you know that a woman invented the bulletproof vest? Every time you see an officer of the law or somebody take out a bulletproof vest from their trunk and put it on, a woman invented that. A woman invented Scotchgard. Surely it was a mother of children that invented Scotchgard. A woman invented the pedal trash can. How many of you have a pedal trash can? We have one. It's hard to coordinate the foot with the drop in the trash sometimes, but the pedal trash can, again, something very practical, but a woman invented that. Women who are respected solve problems. In organizations at work, there's a reason why most, or a high percentage at least, of executives and people who manage human resources are women. They're good problem solvers, but they have the personal skills and the ability to interact. Women who are in power change outcomes. There are a lot of books written recently about the rise of women in politics, the rise of women in certain positions of power in companies and in our legislatures and our government. Women who are in power change outcomes. Think about if women were in majority control, where would we be with social justice? If women were in the majority, where would we be with gun violence? If women were in the majority of control, where would we be with the levels of incarceration of minorities? Women in power change things. Ruth Bader Ginsburg said this: women belong in all places where decisions are being made. It shouldn't be that women are the exception. Well, women who make a difference are important. Women are typically making differences because they love someone or they love something. That's what happens, is that they are in love with a person, with a cause, and they make a difference because of that. Women bring passion to the playing field. Whatever is going on, they bring a passion when they really love something or someone. Every year at Easter time, we have Easter egg hunts, certainly for the children and the grandchildren, but we also have an Easter egg hunt for the adult children. We put money in plastic eggs and hide them around everywhere, and this year, all the adults' children were standing at the door for me to say, start. And then it's a stampede. But if we were able to show a video of that event from this year, you would see the female adult children ruthless, passionate, regardless. Women bring passion to the playing field. They bring passion to making a difference. Women who make time love others. That love for family, that love for friends, that love for children, that love for co-workers, they make time because they love others. Time at church, time serving, time volunteering, time working hard at a profession, but loving others is making time. Henry David Thoreau said, it's not enough just to be busy. The question is, what are we busy about? And then women who make wise choices love themselves. There's a lot of, again, I keep referring to books being written, but it's just emerging industry of how to help women learn to love themselves. They've become masters at loving children, loving others, loving husbands, loving families, loving friends, but not caring for themselves. Jesus thought it was supremely important because he tied love of ourselves to loving other people. Love God and love others as you love yourself. Women make wise choices when they value themselves. We were in Nashville this last week visiting Jordan and Rachel and our 9-month-old granddaughter, Jane, who's perfect. Before Rachel went to work on Friday morning, she leaned over and she kissed Jane on the forehead and said, remember who you are, the family you come from, and make wise choices. What a way to start as a 9-year-old daughter, start the day. A 9-month-old daughter, start the day. For any daughter to start a day. For any woman to start the day. Love themselves. They make wise choices. We go back to the foot of the cross. Mary sitting there, replaying in her mind Jesus' childhood. Jesus' move into ministry, and then all the events that have brought them to that day. Watching her son's life fade away. Mary didn't know the story wasn't over, but Mary knew enough. Amen.